The Brothers Karamazov, Book 2, Chapter 8. After the scene in Father Zosima's cell, Pyotr and Ivan do not want to go to lunch at the Father Superior's because Fyodor is so shameful. So Fyodor, Dmitri, Alyosha, Ivan, and Pyotr and young Kalganov have all been invited to this dinner. Dmitri has run off in anger and in great emotion. Alyosha is full of shame. He's put Zosima, he's tucked him in for nighty-night, and he's had this really cynical, disgusting conversation with Rakuten in the copse in the trees. Rakuten, being a nobody, isn't invited to the dinner with the big kids, so we get the conversation between Ivan and Pyotr about whether to go to the lunch or not. And Pyotr is so ashamed that he paradoxically kind of wants to go to the dinner to try to pull his reputation out of it and basically apologize for knowing Fyodor, even though he had nothing to do in his mind with the shameful behavior. He wants to make it clear that he's not connected to it. So Pyotr is so worried about his own reputation, his own, not conscience, but just his reputation, and is so ashamed of guilt by association that he wants to go try and rectify it and fix that. Ivan seems to feel differently about it, though the result going to the dinner is the same. His reasoning seems to be entirely different, and that is that he just doesn't care that much. He seems so self-assured, self-confident, maybe so cold that he kind of doesn't seem like he cares very much that his father has made a scene. And so maybe he's not great at taking a temperature of the room, or maybe he just doesn't care about the room. And either way, Pyotr and Ivan are comfortable going to the dinner with, of course, the only condition being that Fyodor doesn't go to the dinner, and Fyodor has made such a scene, brought so much shame upon himself and his family that he couldn't possibly go to the dinner, right? Well, Pyotr, Musov and Ivan walk in, and the first thing they want to do is Pyotr apologizes for knowing Fyodor and saying, if I had known that, I never would have come. I apologize for my friend's behavior. And of course, the monks, being fine Christian men, the Father Superior says, no, we're sorry that we couldn't make it right. We wish he was here. And so at that moment, everything seems to be fine. Musov, everything is right with the world. His apology has been accepted, and the Father Superior is happy. They did all they could to make Fyodor happy, and everyone's happy. And then the narrator, Dostoevsky, immediately switches to what's going on with Fyodor. He has left. He intended to leave, but then he thinks, you know what? I've already played the fool. I've already played the scoundrel. I've already been the deplorable one, and that was kind of fun. I might as well see it all the way through. So he returns and he starts shouting, and he starts with the Von San business again. We learned that Von San was a famous murderer, and this guy Maximov maybe somewhat resembles him. And so Fyodor just keeps calling him Von San, just totally not understanding what you're doing at the at dinner, at a formal dinner at a monastery. Keep bringing up this murderer's name and his actions and calling this guy Maximov Von San. But then he does something more deplorable and wretched. He looks at the age of the brand of the wine that they're drinking, the port, and he insinuates and then implies and then just outright accuses the monks of living high off these peasants' tithes and offerings, basically implying that they're living here in a bed of roses and drinking fine wine, having different types of bread, and even serving meat. And then he brings up this accusation that really, it makes absolutely no sense coming from Fyodor. He accuses these monks of abusing the office of elder, probably sometime in in his memory he read an article or he heard a discussion about the controversy, sort of the inter-Nicene, inter-church controversy about the undue popularity of elders at the time, and that is that they would require even others in the religious order to do public confessions, and that seemed inappropriate, and that seemed like an abuse of power, because how honest and forthcoming could a public confession be? And so there's no way that Fyodor has actually witnessed one of these. And there's no way at all that he's actually concerned about people confessing their sin and not being able to be honest. No, he just heard some accusation about the monks. He brings up the most obvious accusation that anyone who ever wants to criticize a religious figure, that they're just doing it for the money. Now he accuses them of having a size that outdoes their role, that they require people to confess just to humiliate and shame people. And so Fyodor just keeps going on and playing the fool. Everyone is ashamed of him, and poor Alyosha just stands there holding his head in shame at his father's character, his father's actions. And so really the only option left at this point is really for Fyodor and Ivan to just retreat to the carriage, and old Maximov von San himself runs, and he wants to go with them. And Ivan is so angry at this point that he punches Maximov away from the carriage, and then won't answer his dad's comments even after a few minutes. He's just fuming at his dad, because his dad is, again, the living embodiment of the logical conclusion of everything that Ivan believes. He is a fool and a wretch, and he's just made a scene. And in, I think, a highly ironic twist, how did the scene end with him saying, well, at the end of the day, Alyosha needs to leave this place. I'm not going to donate any more money, and Alyosha shouldn't be here with all these wretches here. So what's funny is our two elderly gentlemen, or at least not young gentlemen, are Zosima and Fyodor. And in the last two chapters, chapter 7 began with Zosima saying the same thing for an entirely different reason, which is Alyosha should leave the order and should not become a monk. And Fyodor, because of his foolish buffoonery, still ends up at the same place. Alyosha shouldn't become a monk. He should leave this place.